When you're repotting your house plants, guys, I had to recently give my plants some new nutrients, some new soil. I needed to give it a new space where they can grow and become healthy and awesome and so vivacious, you know what I mean? They could survive. They could really, you know what I mean? They could really dig the roots and even deeper than deep, you know what I'm saying? So I recently had to repot my plants, and there were any number of reasons. The soil was dried out, or not dried out. It had been enough time to replace them. But I think the biggest reason why is because I'm gonna admit this, okay? I was quote unquote neglecting my plants. You know what I mean? I wasn't properly taking care of them, and that was shown by some things that I allowed, that happened to my plants, you know what I mean? And these things, I didn't even know these things could happen. I was just like, they're not outside, so I was just like, they'll be fine amongst, to figure their lives out, but no. So the first thing is one of my plants got, and these are two different things that happened to each plant, but the first plant got bugs in it. Now, these kind of bugs aren't necessarily bad. I can't, looking at them, you're like, oh, they're like, you could like kind of figure out for yourself, or you could kind of like tell like, oh, those are such and such, like, you know what I mean? It's not a well-known, or like, I guess it is a well-known, but I'm just saying it's like right off the top of your head. It's not like you can point out the kind of bug like a ladybug or like a cockroach or something, you know what I mean? It's like one of those tiny little millipedes, like a centipede or whatever, right? And these things, I was trying to like pluck them out of my plant. I was like, that should be it, right? That's the end of it. But it's so much deeper than that. They're growing nests and laying eggs inside the deep end of it all, and it's just like, oh man, I can't believe I allowed this to happen. But these things aren't necessarily bad. They kind of just like eat some of the dead soil and stuff, or like some of the dead stuff that was there. Like there'll be like a few leaves and whatnot, or like the way that it kind of grows out is like old ones will kind of like die and decay, and then the new ones will sprout out in their place. So when an old leaf kind of like dies, I guess, or sits on the soil or whatnot, right? And also when the soil gets old at a certain point, you know what I mean? You have to replace it. And replacing it is beneficial to taking care of your plants. But for me, I was just kind of like, how can I get rid of the millipedes without changing the soil? And I think changing the soil was obviously the easiest part and probably the best idea to get rid of it. But for me, I was like, before I changed it completely, maybe I should figure out, or like maybe I should learn the method to getting rid of them without changing it. Because who's to say that when the soil is healthy or whatnot, they just won't come back, you know what I mean? So I was just like, let me learn the process. Let me figure out how to get rid of these things before I completely change out the soil. Because changing out the soil is like, that's a pretty easy thing to do, you know what I mean? But learning the right insecticide to get rid of those particular bugs, or bugs in general, you know what I mean, that are healthy for the soil and for inside the house and whatnot, like that's important. So I was determined to figure out like, what do I spray? What insecticide can I use to get rid of? What can I really do to get rid of them without changing the soil, And I wanted to follow this thread of like, okay, what's the process? You know what I'm saying? It's like everything has a process. There's a process to it. There's a motion. There's a way to get rid of them. And in the process, I was just kind of like, okay, there's none of them that specifically say that they're for centipedes or for millipedes, but maybe they fall under the umbrella of another bug, or like of the same kind of like bug family, if you will. Like if centipedes and millipedes may be called something else in like bug terminology or whatnot. I don't know the exact frame, but if that bug family or if an insecticide affects that bug family, then it might be reasonable to associate that with them. So whatever. Anyways, in learning about this stuff, I was kind of like, I have so much respect for farmers because they have to constantly deal with this stuff and constantly deal with maybe bugs and spraying some sort of, I would hope, healthy insecticide. I'm not going to say that they're all healthy, you know what I mean? I'm probably in the earlier days when kind of, I guess, environmentalism wasn't as big of a thing. They just kind of threw whatever chemicals would get rid of the bugs, and then obviously chemicals to grow their fruits and vegetables and other what have yous to, you know what I mean, make their crops grow bigger and better and a lot more flavorful, I guess, or I guess is the right word. But anyways, I was just like, imagine owning a strawberry field and then one day it's like, oh, there's bugs on it. Well, we have to get rid of the bugs, and then we have to figure out the right insecticide for them, and then da-da-da-da-da. Or how did they get infected in the first place? How many of the strawberries are infected with these bugs? How can we, prevent this from happening again? What are the steps that we can take? Well, and then they like do a deep dive into it. So it's like, well, this happened because because one of the sprinklers broke, or, like, let's just say, for example, one of the sprinklers broke, and then this thing couldn't get enough water, so it dried out, and then the bugs were attracted to that, or they could get into that, and then they started like feeding on it and eating it and digging into the soil and tearing it apart. Now for the other ones, they, you know what I mean, and then it spread to a couple of the other ones as well, and then it's like, okay, we need to cut that off, and we need to like stop the spreading of them. And obviously spray the insecticide, and then after that we can focus on the sprinkler, and that'll fix the whole thing, right? And then, it's just kind of like all like a process that they figure out. It's like, oh man, we lost this crop, or they were, they dried out, or it didn't come out right, or you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh man, there's so much to learning about agriculture. There's so much learning about, how you can, just about bugs in general, but like in taking care of plants, I guess, and in learning how to care for them in the proper way, and to learn that you could do everything right. Like you could feed it water, give it sunshine, and think that's the end of it all. But no, it goes way deeper than that, and you have to learn all of these things if you want to be really good at it. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I just have a few, like 2 house plants, and I messed them up, and I was like, what is going on with these things? And then you find out that it's like, oh wow, there are any number of bad things that could happen to your house plants. And I got 2 things that are, not the best things in the world. Like obviously you don't want anything to happen to your house plants, but at the same time it's like, if these things were like the worst of the worst, like, for me in my situation, or for my plants, is like, if these things are the worst that happen to my plants, then I think my plants will be okay. But anyways, that was the first plant. I got some millipedes in there. And they were really creeping me out, you know what I mean? They were so, you know what I mean? They're just looking at them, I was just like, oh man, like that's got to be so, you know what I mean? For my plant, I was just like, I don't even know how they got in there. I was just very like, why? I was just, it bugged me. So essentially, I looked at it and I was like, okay, maybe the best thing to do is just to pluck them out, right? I thought that would be the most humane thing to do. I thought that would be the right thing to do. And as soon as you touch them, I would like use a pair of tweezers or whatever I had to like pluck them out. And apparently, when you touch them, they like curl up into a ball. They like curl up like roly-polies. And I was like, okay, so they're not going to make this difficult. You know what I mean? They're very easy to get out. But obviously, picking them out one by one is just like It's a never-ending job. So obviously the best thing to do would be to remove it, but I was like, how do I get rid of them without removing it? So anyways, it led me down this big, like, okay, what kind of insecticide is healthy for my house plant and that can, like, get the job done? And essentially, I kept on looking and looking and looking, and I was like, what's something that could get rid of these millipedes? Is there anything at all? And there was like this powder that I had to buy, and there was like all of this different stuff. I was like, maybe that's a little too advanced. Maybe we're just, I don't know. I was just kind of like, maybe it's just the only thing I could do is just remove all of the soil. But then I realized that there is a spray. There are numerous insecticide sprays that you can buy to get rid of bugs, but I didn't know if they targeted specifically the millipedes in my plant. So I was like, okay, what targets specifically these millipedes? Like, if anything else, like, let's figure this out. And then an easy Google search told me, and it led me down the right path, and it said, I saw a spray for neem oil. Now, I don't know if this neem oil is the right thing to use. I just know that it was an option that I found, and I was like, okay, let's try it. You know what I mean? It's at my local store nearby. I can get like one bottle, like a small little thing of it, and then I can spray it for however long I have to daily, and then we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that works. Let's see if that option will, you know what I mean? We'll get the job done. And I went to the store, I got it, and they didn't have like as small of a thing as I wanted. But anyways, I get back, and immediately I start looking at like, okay, I have it now, but like, is this the right thing to use? You know what I mean? Is it proper? Is it the thing that I have to do? And I think that what I read or what I found was that like the best way or the most humane way to get rid of these bugs was to essentially pick them out or just remove the soil completely, and just let them venture out into the wild and fend for themselves, you know what I'm saying? Instead of living in my house plant. But I was like, I could pick them out all day, and obviously removing the soil is like the top method. But for me, I was just like, I need to know how to stop these, how to like kill them at the source, like no matter what, you know what I mean? If they come back again, I can't just rely, on picking them out or replacing the soil every single time. I don't want to go through that. I need to really figure this out. So then it led me to the neem oil, and then from the neem oil, I was kind of like, what does it really do to them? Like, it like, you know what I mean? I was like, is it going to like melt them down like the Wicked Witch of the West and the Wizard of Oz? You know what I mean? It's like, I'm melting. Is that like how it's going to be with them? Is it going to literally like disintegrate them? What's going to happen to them? You know what I mean? I was interested. I was fascinated by this. I was like, it was messed up. You know what I mean? Because, they're bugs. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to hurt them. I would love to just like pick them out, you know what I mean? If that would solve it, but it's not just like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of them that I have to pluck out. It's like, it'd have to be a repetitive process over and over and over again of removing them just so, you know what I mean? Just to get rid of a few and not get rid of the whole problem. So essentially what the neem oil does to these millipedes, and this is not a good thing. So the neem oil itself doesn't necessarily disintegrate them. It doesn't like, you know what I mean? That's not how it works. The neem oil doesn't like melt their bodies and like get rid of them completely. No. So what the neem oil essentially does is you spray a bunch of it all over your plant. Everywhere in the soil, on the leaves or on the stems, just to be safe, you know what I mean? Not necessary, but spray it all over. Then once you spray it all over, the millipedes will come up to the surface, to the soil, or they'll, like they usually do, they'll just come out every now and then, or they'll come up to the top. Now once they get up there, the neem oil, the spray, will kind of mess with their brains. They'll be like, "What the?" You know what I mean? They'll. I don't want to say hallucinate. You know what I mean? I think that's the bad way to. That's a wrong way to say it or to put it. I think it's just kind of like they're in like this sort of trance where it's like, "Oh man, like, dude, I'm so full. I'm so." You know what I mean? Like they'll think that they're full per se, like they've eaten a lot and they can't eat anymore. You know what I mean? They'll be in this sort of psychotic trance, but physically their real bodies, they'll be starving. So essentially you rewire their brains to get them to stop eating, and then once they stop eating they eventually die of starvation. Now I read that and I was like, that is wrong, and there's no way that should, like, that is messed up. But at the same time I was like, this is the only way to do it? I was like, oh my gosh. Now, obviously, there are probably better insecticide options. Like there was some like something with soap. It was just kind of like a, you know what I mean? It was like a science experiment. And it was just, you had to like mix some soap with some powder or like some other stuff. And I was just kind of like, just give me a bottle of spray and let me try to, you know what I mean? I was looking for a quick, like what's an easy home buying solution? Like I don't want to have to do this science project every time, but like, you know what I mean? I was just kind of looking for whatever was there. And I didn't know if they were going to do, I didn't know what those things were going to do as well. Like, you know what I mean? Maybe the next one does burn them or like melt them like the Wizard of Oz. So anyways, I spray it, and sure enough, a few of them, you know what I mean? I only sprayed it once. All right. So it's recommended on the bottle that you have to keep it up for like 7 to 10 days just to get the desired results that you want. So you have to spray it a bunch daily. I only sprayed it once, and I, you know, just the one time all the way around. And some of them died, you know what I mean? I won't lie. I did kill a few, you know. I'm not proud of it. I'm just saying, like, if it was between the bugs and my plant, I gotta hang in there for my plant. You know what I mean? We've been through so much together. It's, you know, so green. It deserves to, you know, continue to flourish and grow. So anyways, my neem oil worked, but it didn't kill all of them because I only got, you know, I didn't keep on the spray. So essentially then, now, leading up to now, I replaced the soil, got a new pot for it, and watering it, you know what I mean? Making sure that it all stays in there, make sure it stays good and whatnot. And yeah, simple stuff like that, you know? Nothing too crazy, you know what I mean? I think one of the things about it was just, I just wanted something that was quick, easy, painless, but that wasn't an option. So I had to go through with it. Now, would I do it again? No, I'd just probably replace the soil and get new stuff up. But for the most part, up until like a few weeks ago, my plants were they were healthy. They were doing great. So I just need to learn the timing of replacing the soil and not neglecting my plants. So anyways, that was the first plant. The second plant got this, like, what's it called? It was like this white fungus. Oh my gosh, it was like mold. I couldn't. And now, before you get all like, oh, that's disgusting. It's not like dangerous to me. Like, it's not like if it gets into the air, like it'll kill me. It's like kind of non-harmful to humans, if that makes sense. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's more so that, like, I overwatered my plants and now there's mold, you know what I mean, coming out. And the stuff is pretty easy to get rid of. I saw some things that was like you sprinkle some cinnamon on there, or like baking soda mixed with water, or like apple cider vinegar. Like you can just mix up like a bunch of like a bunch of stuff and then just pour it in there and it'll get rid of the mold per se. But for me, I was just kind of like, I could sprinkle cinnamon on there, you know what I mean? But I was just kind of like, I don't know. I when it comes to mold and that kind of stuff, I'm just like, no, we can't play around with this. Like, it's one thing to mess with the bugs, like killing them is like, okay, we can, I know that there's a way to kill them, like with insecticide. With the mold, I was just kind of like, or like the, whatever it was, I don't know the exact term for it. It was just like this white stuff all over the soil, and I was just kind of like, I don't know, I don't like that, and so I was just kind of like, it's not a solution like the neem oil that I can just spray to get rid of it for the soil. It's something that's like you can scoop them, you can scoop it out, or you could sprinkle it, cinnamon on it or whatever they were talking about, or you just replace the whole thing. And I was like, it's probably best to not play around with this and to really just get rid of it entirely and start anew. So that's why with the second one it was a lot easier, but the mold itself, or like the thing as it is, isn't really I don't think it's really that bad. It's not like harmful to me. I when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's weird. It's probably just like some lint. I thought it was like lint or just like, oh, that's crazy. I thought it was just like some stuff that fell from my ceiling that fell into the soil, and I was just like, oh, that's just not like, oh, okay, that's not so bad. I was like, it's nothing to worry about. It's nothing like these bugs over here. But the mold or whatever, the white thing that was showing up on the surface, that was like just as bad. And it's just a sign of like, you're not taking care of your plants properly. You're overwatering them. You can't treat them that way. You have to give them the right amount, you know what I mean? And make sure that they stay there. You can't constantly be on this high of giving them so much water. And I think a lot of the reason why these things happen to my plants is because I stopped I was neglecting them, but two, I was also like, I stopped giving them, what's it called? I stopped letting the water flow out. So essentially when I would water my plants, that I would do for like months, is I would water them, and then I would let the water flow out through the bottoms, and I would just let that kind of like, once that all got to the last tiny drop out, then the soil would be soaked in water, or it would have enough water to hold and allow the roots to grow more. But at the same time, it would also it wouldn't be too much water. It's just enough water for the soil and the plant to hold. But then after a while, I was just kind of like, oh, I don't need to do that. Like, the more water, the better, or whatever. So I had this like pot holder that was like also plastic, and I put it underneath the pot, and then when I would water the plants, I would just let the water sit there. So if I overwatered it, the water would be caught by the pot holder or whatever, and I would just let that dry up, or let the soil soak it up or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And that was oh my goodness, sorry. And that would overwater the plants, and that's what eventually led to bugs and the mold and all of this stuff. And I just think that's the number one reason why it happened. I don't know if that's the exact reason, but I know that's a reason why it happened. I probably is the main reason. But anyways, that was just kind of the things that happened to my plants. And I felt like I should have immediately taken care of it. Like, as soon as I saw the bugs, I shouldn't have like tried to figure it out or play with it or mess around with it. I should have immediately gotten rid of it. Gotten rid of the bugs, rechanged the soil and everything as early as possible. And the same goes for the mold. I just was kind of like, All they need is water and sunshine, and that's it. And da 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 da. I can go on with my life and not worry about them. They'll take care of themselves. They're just plants, you know? Who cares? They're just plants. But then at the end of it all, I was just kind of like, oh boy, I should have been there for them. I should have taken care of them. They rely on me, and I let them down, you know? And I've told them this, so, you know, they forgive me, you know what I'm saying? They're just happy to be in a new safe environment, you know what I'm saying? And it just feels like not like a betrayal, but it feels like just a disappointment, you know what I mean? They look at me with this disappointed look, and I can see it in their leaves. I can see it in their, you know what I mean? When a few of their leaves are like on the verge of withering, they're just kind of like, you caused this. And I'm just like, I know, I'm sorry, guys. Please forgive me. I'll grow you back bigger and better than ever. I promise. And they're just like, we know, we're just disappointed that you know what I mean, you weren't taking care of us properly. So that's just what I'll say about it. And other than that, it was just a matter of getting rid of the bugs and the mold in the right way that they should. So outside of it, I'm just kind of more fascinated about like, and then obviously trying to find the specific bug for my plants. I ended up finding like a whole bunch of other bugs it could be. Like, I think I got probably like the easiest bug and mold to get rid of, but there's like a bunch of other stuff out there that's like not so easy, and it's kind of like messed up, that really damages your plants and stuff. Like, they have bugs like I don't know, the aphids and like a bunch of other stuff like mealy bugs. They got like all sorts of stuff that you don't really want in your plants. So it just kind of was like, you know? So in conclusion, at the end of it all, when you're repotting your house plants, I just think that learning about what's in your soil or when to change it, or I mean, I think it's pretty basic stuff, you know. I'm not saying like this is crazy, you know what I mean, this is wild. It was just like literally you just had to repot your plant, you fill it up with some new soil, and that would be the end of it. But obviously for me, I was just kind of like interested in learning the process of getting rid of these things in a different way, you know, that didn't require me, you know, every so often to replace it with, you know, a new pod and new soil and stuff. I just was like interested in that. And because I was interested in it, I learned like a lot more, you know, and how to deal with it. So anyways, when you're repotting your house plants, focus on maintaining your plant's health at all costs. So change out the soil, focus on watering it the appropriate amount, and above all else, don't neglect it. You have to really focus on them and keep an eye on like every little thing that could possibly happen. If you leave your house plants, maybe I leave my house plants they're up on my dresser, so that way they're not like on the floor. But like if your house plant gets to a certain size, you have no choice but to maybe like make room for it on the floor. Like, oh, it has to sit here on the floor because I have no room to fit it elsewhere. And that's completely fine. But it's just that like then bugs have more of a easy chance to climb up and into the soil. And because of that, you have to kind of keep an eye on all things and just kind of look out for like, oh, it was on the ground, so maybe an ant got in there, or some other bug was down there and they got inside, you know what I mean? They got inside my apartment or my room or wherever, my house and whatnot, and so they just kind of dug in there, and now that I have a bug problem and I don't know how it happened, and now I have to like figure out all this other stuff. So it just basically keep an eye on them, be attentive, be, you know, focused on them, give them proper attention, proper care. And when you do that, everything else just easily falls into place. Everything, taking care of them is super easy, you know. But And also people who have like different variety of plants get like different things will happen to them. So, you know, I don't know. For me, what happened was my two plants are different. They're not the same kind of plant. So one of them got bugs, the other one got mold. And I was just like, that's interesting because the other one didn't get mold and the other one didn't get bugs. So I was like, they're right next to each other. And so I was just kind of like, okay, how, I guess the differences is that like the big difference is this one maybe attracts bugs and this one is like more prone to mold than bugs. So I don't know. Or maybe the mold is what rejected the bugs and maybe the bugs eat any of the mold. So it's just kind of like this weird thing where it's like, two different plants got different diseases. I don't know what the proper term is. They got something wrong with them, and I just kind of like the differences between them. It's like I thought that was cool. It was the bugs eat the bugs in the plant eat dead things, like they eat soil, they eat they eat the dead plant and soil and the leaves and whatnot. So that would mean that they would eat the fungus or the white stuff that's on the other plant. But then if the fungus was on that plant, then maybe that kind of like makes bugs unattracted to it and not want to eat it. I don't know. Anyways, stay attentive, look after your plants, repot them right now. Yes, I'm talking to you. If you are at home right now and you have house plants, but you haven't repotted them, you haven't given them any new soil, I'm telling you right now, do it right now. Oh, but I just gave them new soil. Do it again. All right, and give them a different variety of soil, the kind that holds moisture into it, okay? So that way you don't have to overwater them as much, all right? So anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thank you.